All right, who's excited for tonight? Woo! All right. So, we love to do things like this. We love to invest in marriages, and we really believe that when we're investing in our marriage, everything's better, right? Who believes that? It doesn't matter if you've been married for 30 years, 50 years, less than a year. These guys have been married less than a year, by the way. They are the newlyweds in the room. We love you guys. Sorry, I couldn't not give you a shout out because, like, I'm proud of you. Look, less than a year and already investing in your marriage. These guys learned something. Uh, they're learners, and you guys too. I'm sorry. Anyway, so when we're investing in our marriages, though, there's just something that happens, and I believe that God honors that, and I believe that God honors when, especially when you're in unity, and so I'm gonna share a scripture in a second here, but I want to encourage you, put your arm around your spouse, you know, you can grab it inside of his leg if you want. Oh snap. No one's judging you. But just real funny fact, okay? So sometimes you ever have one of those days where you're like, can we just start over? Like that was just a crazy morning. Like we start every morning like literally like go 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 get in the car now. Anyway, but like maybe after we've gotten the kids to school, we have a chance to like actually like we did that. We got them to school. Or Kathy got them to school for us. Thank you. Um, but we like to sometimes like kind of reset by grabbing each other's hands, by holding, looking into each other's eyes, slowing down, saying, "We can do this. It's gonna be a good day." But did you guys know that there's actually like a chemical that is released when you have physical touch, and it's called oxytocin. It's a great hormone that God designed, and it is the bonding hormone. Okay, so it will actually make you forget that you're mad at the person. It will actually make you forget about all the chaos in your life. And for you men, like you're already only thinking about her, right? But for her, she will forget all the other things she's thinking about, right? And all those things will fade away, and you guys will just have that like connection. So if you guys are actually in the middle of maybe a crazy day or a fight or something, um, one of the best things you can do is hold hands. And what is it, at least 5 minutes? Like the hormones aren't kicking out, and unless 5 minutes. All right. So, but feel free to use that trick to your advantage, men. Like, hey, or women. I don't know, whoever's more physical. Like, hey, like John said, it's okay to hold hands. We should hold hands. Um, Even in church, I'll accept. That's acceptable. Anyway. So I want to start with a verse. It's a verse in Psalm 133. It says, "How wonderful and pleasant." Isn't those two good words? Wonderful and pleasant. How wonderful and pleasant is it when brothers live together in harmony? Or another one says unity. And so, anybody know the difference between having like a united house and a not united house? It's just never fun, right? You're trying to have unity, and even in like a church setting, you can kind of tell when there is unity in a church. Why? What's the fruit of unity? Love, peace. It actually says here that the Lord has pronounced, and there the Lord has pronounced his blessing. His blessing. So if you can tell when someone's being blessed, a lot of times it's because there's unity there. And so if you're not being blessed, work on your unity, right? And so I just want to just to share that with you because it's an important principle that we need to strive for unity. We need to strive to get on the same page. We need to strive to do things like this, where we get on the same page, we talk through it, but also we can have unity between um, our kids, between everybody, right? There's blessing that God commands his blessing on a place that's united, on a house that's united. So I want to start with that. Tonight tonight we're going to give you guys a message that's basically kind of one of our life messages. You know, you have those messages that are like, that's my message. We kind of claimed it as like, this is one of our messages that we if we can practice this one thing, then God will see God bless us, right? And so I start out with a question. What's the question? What is the next question? What is the question, Wayne? Who wants a marriage that's blessed? Anyone? Okay. So the question, I guess, here you guys, I found it. My question is why in life, wait, that's like, no, you have to go to the other, they have to go to the other one. That's the very end. That's the questions that you're supposed to do at the end. The other one, Wayne, right above it. Okay, so the question is, why do some have more favor in their life than others? Okay, so I want you to think about the Lukes. Okay, the Lukes have so much favor just pouring over them. All right, why are the Lukes so blessed? Tell me. Because they're the best. Like, I want you to think of somebody who you think is like blessed. Like you would say, like, man, those people are so blessed. They have so much favor just pouring out of them. Why? What if that's like that's a fruit, right, of something that was established a while ago? What was what is the habit or the trait that they did for a while to get favor in their life? Somebody answer. They poured into each other. They worked together. Jesus. That's a good one. What else? Forgiveness. Okay. Commitment. Communication. Trust. Trust. Okay. So, we've actually have seen something happen. We've watched, even in church world, some pastors that have been promoted in our life, that we've seen promotion happen in their life, and then we've seen pastors that were asked to leave, right? So, and we've seen marriages that have grown and thrived, and then we've seen marriages that have struggled. And there's all of those things you can say are the ingredients to favor, to promotion. But we really believe that there's one thing that is honestly even more important than those things that we're talking about. And it comes from a verse, a story in the Bible. Who thinks we should study the Bible at some point tonight, right? Okay, this is the story of Jesus, and he went to Nazareth. Where's Nazareth? Or what is it to Jesus? It's his hometown, okay? So who's not from Denver? A lot of people, right? If you went back to California, Fisks, right? And you're like, hey, I'm back, right? That's what Jesus is doing right here. He's saying, he came back to Nazareth, and it says, when Jesus had finished telling these stories and illustrations, he left that part of the country. He returned to Nazareth, his hometown. When he taught there in the synagogue, everybody was amazed and said, where does he get this wisdom and the power to do miracles? Then they scoffed. He's just the carpenter's son. And we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simeon, and Judas. All of his sisters live right here amongst us. Where did he learn all of these things? And they were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. Then Jesus told them, a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown, and honored and even amongst his own family. So, look at this last verse. So he did only a few miracles there because of their unbelief. So Jesus actually, his power was even limited in his hometown. He wanted to restore healing. He wanted to do in Nazareth what he had done in the other places where he was doing ministry. But yet he ran into a roadblock, almost like a river, right, that had a dam in front of it that prohibited favor from pouring out of him. And that thing that was prohibiting him was honor. He was not honored in his hometown. He was not honored in his home. So I want you to think about that word honor. How would you define honor? I know it's kind of a hard word to describe. Respect. Wow, that was like simultaneous respect just resonated from all of the veterans in the room. All right. What else? Uplift. You want to learn from them. So yeah, notice he was in the synagogue, he was teaching, and yet people did not want to hear what he had to say. They weren't teachable, right? Why? Because they looked down on him. Oh, he was that kid that grew up. That's his mom right there. Like, how did you learn what you did? And so they almost closed off their hearts with dishonor, right? And I'll make the point tonight that it's very easy to treat the most important person in your life without honor. It's very easy to treat them as common. It's very easy to say, well, I know more than you, right? It's very easy to honestly disrespect. And especially when you see all their flaws, like, right? When she sees all my flaws, I'm like, I feel vulnerable. I feel, like, I don't know. But then when she honors me, it causes me to be the best version of myself, right? But when she points out my flaws, I'm limited in what I can do as her husband, right? Just like here at church, right? If people are honoring me as a pastor, then what happens? They leave the room going, wow, that was an incredible message. Or if they walk into the room going, man, I know more than that guy, they leave going, that message was like nothing, right? I've seen it all the time. People that go church shopping, right? And they're like, yeah, he's okay. Like, there's no honor there. So if there's no honor there, then God can't pour out favor. He can't pour out blessing. He can't pour out what he wants to do. So,
one thing he said that I wanted to just repeat is that one definition, if you will, of dishonor is not actually even just like disrespecting or being mean to someone. But dishonor can just be treating something as common. And when you first get married, you look at your spouse like they are the best. Like, this is the sexiest man I've
they can
ever
do no
met.
wrong.
They are so perfect, And really what you're doing is you're realizing this person is uncommon. Like, I am so lucky that I got this person, And then there becomes this point where sometimes it's even not intentional. Sometimes it's unintentional. And you just start kind of treating each other as common, And it's not even, so we're not even talking about dishonor in this horrible way, like, oh, you guys are being disrespectful to each other. But we all do it. We all get to this point where, and I'll be honest, COVID was rough because suddenly you went from this place of you're, home for a little bit and then you go to work and then you come home and you're like, I missed you, and absence makes the heart grow fonder and it's great, to now like, I see you all the time. Like, I never get away from you, right? And I think it's very easy during COVID to all of a sudden see your spouse as common. Like, yeah, you're just my roommate. You're here all the time, And so I think that's kind of why we wanted to talk about this, is not because any of us are like horrible spouses, like dishonoring and talking down to our spouse and we don't like you anymore. Nothing like that. It's just reminding ourselves like how lucky we are. How blessed we are that God gave us the spouse that he gave us, and that truly this person that we're married to is uncommon. They're spectacular. They're special. They're not perfect. I never said perfect. Never said treat your spouse as perfect human being, but treat them as uncommon. Treat them as special. Treat them as, and I'm really lucky that God gave me you. Yeah. So You know, part of this also comes from another verse that I want to read in Matthew chapter 10. And there's actually a whole book written on this, and it actually is not about marriage at all. It's called The Honor's Reward by John Bevere, and it is about everything, like honoring your boss and honoring people in your life. And so anyway, so this verse, Matthew 10:41 says this: whoever welcomes a prophet, so remember they said a prophet is without honor, you know, in his own home. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. Another version said, if you receive a prophet as one who speaks for God, you will be given the same reward as a prophet. And the premise of the whole book, Honor's Reward, is this: the measure that we honor someone is kind of the reward that we end up getting. And if I honor John just as some random person off the street, you know, how much of a reward do you get from some random person that you only see a couple times a year? Nothing, right? There's no depth of friendship. There's no, you know, relationship. There's no somebody that comes alongside you. There's no reward, whatever, from a stranger, right? Same thing. If I just treat him as a friend, and I'm going to get a friend's reward. And would you agree that a wife or a husband reward, a spouse reward, is greater than a friend reward? It is. It should be. The reward we get from our spouse should be so much more than just a normal friend. How about a coworker? If I honor John just like a coworker, because sometimes we have coworker conversations.
We're coworkers.
We are coworkers. Sometimes we talk to each other like coworkers. And I'm going to get a coworker's reward from him. I don't know how many of you feel real rewarded by your coworkers, you know. But if I honor him as my spouse, as my husband, as my one and only, as the one who is uncommon, who is special, who is made just for me, then I'm going to get that reward. Now, maybe you don't believe me, so I'm just going to give you maybe more of an example of this. If you're like, that's not true. It's a principle in the Bible, but I'll give you an example just in case. So we've had lots of students come through our youth ministry. I think John became a youth pastor in 2003. My first full-time job was in 2006. So we've had a lot of students. Some students are like married and have kids already, which is super weird. And I want to point out one specific student. Obviously, we could point out you two as well, Matthew and Sarah. But Danny, right? Danny continually honored us as more than just, you were my youth pastor way back then, and I know more than you now. You know that Danny has her MDiv, her Master's of Divinity, and we don't, okay? She could look at us and say, I know more than you. I went and got my master's, and you guys didn't. But she never did. Every time she came home, she wanted to see us. And she didn't just treat us like, oh, you're my buddy. She treated us like her pastors. And look at the reward that she got. She's our only staff member. I mean, she is, I don't want to speak for her, but I do feel like she would say her life is very blessed. She loves her life now. We have other students who treated us the minute they graduated, went off to college. Most of them, not gonna lie, went to secular universities, and they decided they knew more than us. That we didn't know enough, that we were, whatever. I could say a lot of things because
one of many voices in their life.
I'm not a huge fan of some secular universities. I feel like they brainwashed all of our teenagers that we loved. Anyway, I'm a little bitter. I am really bitter. Anyway, what the enemy has stolen, God's gonna steal back. But we have lots of students who literally stopped honoring us. They just did. They didn't reach out to us. But I guarantee you that if they reached out to us right now, they said, we're struggling. Well, we would drop everything. They would receive a pastor's reward if they would honor us as pastors. But they don't. They honor us like any other person that was a part of their old life before they were enlightened. What's that? What's that thing that they say? No. Woke. There's the word. Before they were woke. Sorry. Anyway, It is true. I have seen over and over the way that you honor someone is the reward you get. Okay? Do you get what I'm saying? They honored us. Danny honored us as a pastor. She got the pastor's reward. Some of these students honored us as a nobody in their life, and they don't even, they're posting all the time about how depressed they are and how lonely they are. And I feel like God keeps saying, don't reach out. Just wait for them to honor you and reach out and value your time. Because I've reached out to people. You know what? They don't value my time. They don't even care what I have to say. So that's my illustration for what I'm talking about. The way that we honor people, the way that we honor our spouse is the reward that we will get. So how do you honor? I'll talk about husbands, and then he will tell you how to honor a wife. Is that cool? What are some practical ways that you can honor your husband? I know this sounds really weird, but men really do like cheerleaders. No
Yeah.
laughs? Come on. No giggles? Nothing? Come on. No. Be your husband's loudest cheerleader. I've heard it said that a man really does need to know that somebody says, hey, I'm so proud of you. You have what it takes. Every single one of you could go up to John on a Sunday and tell him how great his message was, but it doesn't matter. And he'll tell me, he'll just be like, what did you think of my message? It doesn't matter how many of you loved it. He wants to hear what I have to say. Hey, your spouse, your husband especially, wants you to be his biggest cheerleader. Find out what he's doing at his job and find a way to tell him that he's doing a great job. Find something he's doing right in the home and cheerlead him for it. I am the worst about that, like criticizing the one thing he didn't do instead of cheerleading all the things that he did do well. Trust him, don't micromanage. I know that's kind of a thing we've talked about in the past with respect, but honoring too, honor them, that they are adults and they can do it.
I know how to drive.
He knows how to drive. It's bad. I'll be like working and all of a sudden I'll look up and go, and he's like, you haven't even been watching the road. You cannot make that noise if you were looking down. So anyway, sorry.
Grab
Yeah, I do that all the time. Or I like put my foot on the ground like there's a break there, like, and it doesn't do any good. It just kind of makes him mad. So anyway, honor him. Don't point out his flaws. Maybe lovingly point things out. I remember when we first started dating and I saw all these things that I was like, ooh, that's a red flag. He's really unorganized, which now you guys would be really surprised because we're a little frazzled right now, but he's pretty organized for a leader. And most people are like, oh yeah, he's just like that naturally. No, he was not organized. And I remember—
It happened through osmosis.
I did. But I remember in the very beginning of us starting to date and I saw all these flaws and I wanted to point them all out at once. And I felt like God was like, just bring up one thing a month. And I did. It was just like, hey, you know what? We should have like a roster for the youth group and actually like figure out who's here and who's a part of our youth group and maybe like write down their contact info. And he's like, yeah. And so one month that was the thing that I picked to, so honoring sometimes means that it doesn't mean that you don't say anything, because obviously God uses us to sharpen each other. So we should be able to say something like, hey, let's work on this, but don't bring it all up at once. And the way you talk about it, the way you say it, if you talk to your husband like he's a child, John hates that. He hates that. We had a boss once, a female boss, and she talked to him like he was a little kid. And he was like, I have never been so mad. Like, I don't know what it was that frustrated me about that conversation. And then he's like, oh, like she literally dishonored me. Like she couldn't even talk to me like I was a human, like an adult. She talked to me like a child. So the way that you talk to somebody is important. Definitely remind him all the time that he has what it takes. He just wants to know that you think he has what it takes. Even if you don't, have you ever realized that sometimes you can say something over and over and over and over and over and you finally believe it? Not going to get political, but I read this thing that said the easiest form of brainwash is repetition. Is just saying the same thing over and over and over until everyone's like, oh yeah, that is the truth. So Anyway, sorry, no politics, um, but for a spouse, sometimes you can actually brainwash yourself by over and over and over saying, "You have what it takes. You are the most sexy man I have ever met." And the more you say it, all of a sudden you're gonna believe it. So
And I believe it too.
yeah. So repetition. Say it over and over for yourself and for them. The last couple, honor him in public. Honor him in the way you talk about him to other people. If you have
When he's not around.
female friends that just dog on their husbands, I would challenge you to in those friendships. I'm not going to lie. They are going to bring death to your marriage. Okay? I've never been so firm about something, but if your girlfriends like to talk crap about their husbands, it is going to make you want to do that. And if you say those things, repetition, over and over and over, if all you talk about is all the things he does wrong, that's all you're going to believe about him. So I would challenge you to make sure that you have the right friendships. If you feel like, oh, I want to keep these friendships, then you need to say something. Hey, from here on, I don't want to talk bad about our husbands. So honor him in public, especially in front of your kids. Because if you're driving in the car and you're like, oh, your dad didn't do this, this, and this, and this, you know, he's not even there, but the kids hear it. And it's a big deal. John actually found this quote, and he put it on my notes for me to say. He said, "Respect is like chocolate to a man's soul." I was like, John, where's that from? I need to actually source it. He's like, I don't know. I just found it somewhere on the internet. So there you go. Whoever it's sourced to, it was not me, but respect is like chocolate to a man's soul. And the last thing is this. When Eve was created or formed, does anyone remember where she came from? The rib. And some of you may have heard me say this before, but what is one of the main jobs of the rib? To protect the heart. And as females, we literally have the ability to hurt our husband's heart more than anyone else. What usually punctures a lung or whatever? A broken rib, right? Yeah. We have the ability more than anybody else to either protect our husband's heart or to hurt it. And it all has to do with how we honor him.
It's good. Come on now. That was good, right? So I know a lot of those things seem pretty like, oh yeah, duh, right? But when you get in a heated argument, right, you want to poke. You want to dishonor. You want to, or bad habits, right? Anyone ever had a bad habit? COVID, right? I had to stop eating the food that I wasn't supposed to eat because my jeans stopped fitting. Anyway. His recipe gave me a bad habit that I had to kick. Anyway, not going to go back to that bad habit in the winter time because, anyway. But bad habits, right, they creep in, and sometimes nobody sets out to be like, I want to get divorced, right? It's just kind of a slow, gradual path of dishonor, a slow, gradual path of treating that person as common, slow, gradual path of bad habits that creep in. So be careful, obviously, and sometimes you can't, fix everything that you're doing wrong, but look in the mirror and say, I may not be able to fix what she's doing wrong, but I can start fixing the way I honor, right? So I have a couple things of practical ways. We like to be practical. You guys appreciate that about us? Or okay. We're like, hey, the definition of success for us is if you go home and you do at least one of the things that we're suggesting. So the first thing that I have for you, gentlemen, give me a there we go. Yes. So the first thing I have for you, gentlemen, is to reject passivity, right? So I'm convinced that everything would be better for us, gentlemen, if we just rejected passivity, right? That's what got Adam in trouble when he didn't stand between him and the serpent like he was supposed to, right? The serpent and his wife, right? And so passivity a lot of times can lead to dishonor. How? Well, if I'm not treating Joanna as if I'm not honoring her, I'm usually kind of sitting back and treating her as common, right? I'm turning on the TV or I'm doing what I want to do instead of serving my wife, instead of pursuing my wife, right? A lot of times we say, hey, you should go on a date night. Who thinks you should go on a date night? Who actually goes on date nights? Okay. So I like to think of like, hey, if I am rejecting passivity and I'm honoring my wife, I am finding new ways to pursue her. I'm finding new ways to tell her I love her. I'm finding new ways because for some reason she forgets every day that I love her to tell her that, right? I think God like built it into the heart of a woman to want to be pursued, right? And some women may be like, no way, I'm not that way. Well, for some reason, Joanna needs me to reassure her that I love her. But it's not just that I say that to her, it's the way I act and the way I serve her. So the 5 love languages, right? Who knows the 5 love languages? That's just basically a roadmap on how to pursue your wife, right? It's like, oh, she loves gifts. Okay, hope you could make a lot of money because they could be homemade gifts. Something that is very thought out. Okay, thoughtful gifts. Okay. Or rejecting passivity means like, hey, I'm going to find new ways to articulate what I like about her, right? And so if those of you who have tried that, like, practice telling your spouse or your wife what you love about her, right? And that sounds kind of awkward, right? Like how do I tell you we've been married for 30 years that I love the same thing about you? You got to find new things to tell her, right? God's doing a new thing. That's what he talked about, right? So rejecting passivity, pursuing her every day, not just like when it's date night or not just when you want something, right? And being okay if she doesn't give you anything back. Sometimes we pursue expecting a return, and then we're disappointed, so we stop pursuing, right? But that's planting seeds. Pursuing every day just is honoring her, right? It's treating her like she's not common. Okay? The other thing that I get in trouble with is listening. What? So I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I'm like always moving on to the next thing of like what I gotta do or what is important to me. But when she is having an emotional moment and she wants to tell me what's wrong, I got to take off the hat of like, I'm just going to fix it and then value her opinions, what she's feeling, listen to what she's saying, process and say, hey, is this what you're saying? You really don't think I love you? And she's like, yes, you don't love me. I'm like, well, I do love you, but validate her opinions, right? Women, don't you want your husband to validate your opinions, your emotions, not just be like, you're an emotional roller coaster. She doesn't want to hear that. She wants to hear, on my good days and on my bad days, you care, right? You care. Maybe not, and maybe there's nothing you can do to fix it. Hey, that's a good news. You don't have to go spend money on things, right? She just wants you to listen, right? So sometimes even the worst times that you're going through, you don't need something to fix it. You just need to validate her thoughts, her opinions, what she's going through. She wants to be served, right? She doesn't want just someone who's just like taking, but someone who's giving, right? And sometimes it's hard to give when you're not feeling something in return, right? What did Jesus do? He came from heaven down to earth. He came to our level and he served us even when we didn't deserve it, right? So husbands, we're supposed to be like Jesus. What did Jesus do? He served, he loved, he sacrificed even when there wasn't anything back from us. Even when his best friends betrayed him, he laid down his life for them, right? So how do you treat someone as uncommon? You serve them. How do you serve your wife? I don't know. How does she want to be served? Back massages, foot massages, listening. So you can even think about that, ladies. Like, how do you like to be served? Well, your husband needs to probably know what you like, right? How. Yeah. Sometimes I didn't know that she liked a clean house until it was very clear. Until if you. Oh, actually, shutting the cabinet doors is a really big deal. Okay, I will do that, but have some grace, please. Anyway, so we can still honor each other with that too. She is one of a kind. Your spouse was designed for you. Who believes that? Right? God put you together, and even if you're like, there's not a one, I'm a big fan of like, there isn't the one, but once you enter into a covenant relationship, that person, that is the one. Like, you don't get to choose somebody else, right? That person is uniquely gifted, created for you. So value them as that uniquely gifted person for you. I am so glad that I married Joanna because she like completes me. But let's just be honest. I tell her that all the time. And it's obvious the way we live our life that like I need her. And she needs to know that I need her. She doesn't just need to be like, well, I could do this thing without you. That's dishonor, right? Honoring her, I talked about this as well, just like Joanna did, is honoring her in public as well, right? So speaking life of your spouse, right? Who has a bad boss that you don't talk about very often? Or when you do talk about it, you speak death over that person, right? Right? It's so easy sometimes to speak death over somebody, but just like Joanna was saying, speak life, because the tongue is the rudder, James says, of where you're going to go. So encourage her, speak life over her, tell her how beautiful she is, tell her what you like about her that's beautiful, tell her how, like, thank you so much for being my cheerleader, right? That means a lot to me. And just what I said at the beginning, men, it's rejecting passivity. Passivity says, I told her that yesterday. Pursuing her says, I'm going to tell her again. Right? So, that seems like duh, but that's the whatever, the oil in the engine that makes things move, right? That keeps things flowing, that keeps honor happening in your home. So I'm going to close by talking just real quick about Philippians, and I kind of alluded to it. Who has a spouse that's not perfect? Don't raise your hand. You failed the test. My wife is perfect for me. I tell her she's perfect for me. She's like she wants to be perfect, but I tell her you're perfect for me. Okay. Jesus, though, he gave us a perfect picture of how to honor, and that is that he laid his life down. He emptied himself of privilege. He emptied himself of position. He emptied himself of royalty to come to where we are. And that's what honor looks like. It looks like being like Jesus. What's the secret to a great marriage? Honor, but Jesus is above honor. Because if we're responding like Jesus would, then we're going to honor. So, Philippians 2, verse 1, it says, any comfort, sorry, not verse 1. Maybe it's 1. Let's see, Philippians. Oh my goodness.
It's on your phone.
All right, I'm going to read my phone. It's in Philippians, even though I can't find it. All right, Philippians says he emptied. Ever say emptied? He emptied himself. He served you. Think about that and do that. Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Don't be selfish. What's the opposite of love? I like to think of selfishness. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look only out for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something something to cling to. Instead, he gave up divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave, and he was born as a human being. So he emptied himself. He took the position of a slave. He honored us by treating us not as the people that we are, but he elevated us when he died on the cross to being like him. Isn't that cool? And you can think of this for your spouse, but you can also think of this of your coworkers, your kids. Do we ever speak down to our kids? All the time. But what do we have to do? We have to serve them. We have to love them. We have to honor them. We have to take the position that Jesus did, empty ourselves of privilege. And so you got to think of that, because are you perfect? Nope. Is she perfect? For me, no, she's not perfect. And so this is not like, this is counterintuitive. This is not natural. It can only be done with Jesus. It can only be done by looking to him as our example. And that's what brings it all back to Jesus, is when we think about what Jesus did for us, then we can honor our spouse the way Jesus honored us. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to break out into groups and do some discussion on this. Jesus, right now, we thank you so much for tonight. We thank you for everyone that came out, for those that are watching online too. Lord, we thank you for honoring us, for elevating us, and giving us forgiveness, giving us life. And Lord, we want to love our spouse, honor our spouse the way you honor us, God. We want to serve our spouse like you've served us. We want to be our spouse's best cheerleader, because that's who you are to us, God. Lord, we ask for blessing. We ask for favor. If you want favor in your marriage, if you want favor in your life, in your work, in your home, just hold your hands. Say, Jesus, we honor you with our homes. We honor you with our marriages. Treat them as uncommon. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. Well, we don't want to hold you up any longer. We have some groups that we've picked out for you already. We're going to mix it up a little bit.